You don't need to chase to be unforgettable. You just need to linger. This isn't about playing games. It's about learning emotional impact. When you understand the psychology of connection, obsession becomes effortless. Presence over pursuit is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in attraction. Many people, in an effort to feel closer to someone they like, end up overreaching, texting too much, trying to be constantly available, or showing interest in ways that ultimately come across as neediness. What's often missed is that attraction doesn't grow in a straight line. It builds in the space between moments, in the silence between texts, and in the subtle cues that suggest confidence and self-worth. Presence is about how you show up in those moments, and pursuit is often about chasing something out of fear that it might slip away. The key difference lies in where the behavior comes from. One is grounded in value, the other in insecurity. When you're operating from a place of presence, you're not driven by anxiety or scarcity. You don't feel compelled to constantly remind someone you're there because you trust in your own value. You know that when you do show up, it matters. It lands, it leaves an impression. You're not trying to dominate their attention. You're offering something memorable in the time you share. People can sense this distinction immediately. Someone who's present brings a calm confidence to the interaction. They're engaged, listening, and connected, but not grasping or performing. They're not looking for validation every moment. This makes them magnetic. The more you pursue someone unnecessarily, the more they subconsciously categorize you as someone who needs them, rather than someone they need. And people don't obsess over what's constantly in their face. They obsess over what makes them feel something rare and valuable. Being present means knowing that you don't have to do the most to be remembered. Think about people who have left lasting impressions on you. It wasn't necessarily the ones who called every day or sent constant messages. It was likely the ones who made you feel seen, understood, or challenged in a way others didn't. That's the kind of presence that lingers. It also helps to understand the way humans respond to energy. Pursuing someone relentlessly sends a signal of imbalance. It places them on a pedestal and tells them that your focus is completely on them. That kind of one-sided attention can be flattering at first, but it quickly becomes overwhelming or even unattractive if it's not matched by their own emotional investment. On the other hand, when your energy is centered, when you're grounded in your own life, passions, and boundaries, people begin to take notice. They sense that your attention is a gift, not a default. Presence invites curiosity. When you show up with confidence, fully attentive yet unattached to outcomes, you create space for authentic connection. You're not trying to force chemistry or convince someone of your worth. You're simply allowing them to experience you without pressure. That's when intrigue starts to build. The absence of pursuit creates room for them to wonder about you, to reflect on your energy, your words, the way you made them feel. That mental space is where obsession can take root, not because you overwhelmed them with attention, but because you stayed with them emotionally even after you left the room. Most importantly, presence is sustainable. Pursuit burns out. No one can keep up a facade of constant enthusiasm or availability without eventually feeling exhausted or resentful. But presence is natural. It's built on a deep sense of self. When you walk into a room or a conversation with the belief that you are enough, you don't have to do anything extra. That quiet confidence lingers. It creates a ripple effect, and over time, that becomes the difference between being momentarily interesting and being unforgettable. The power of strategic mystery lies in the art of revealing just enough to create connection while holding back just enough to provoke curiosity. In dating and relationships, people often rush to show everything: thoughts, feelings, history, availability, believing that transparency and openness will lead to closeness. But true connection isn't about giving everything at once. It's about unfolding in layers. Mystery doesn't mean being cold or manipulative, it means allowing someone to discover you gradually, which in turn creates a sense of emotional adventure. When someone can predict your every move, the experience becomes flat. There's no tension, no anticipation, no wondering what's next. Human desire thrives on anticipation. It's the reason cliffhangers keep us hooked on stories, and why the beginning stages of attraction feel so electric. Strategic mystery plays into that dynamic by offering contrast, the warmth of your presence paired with the unpredictability of what's still beneath the surface. It's not about withholding who you are, it's about pacing the reveal so that it feels organic and emotionally compelling. There's a common fear that if you don't show your full self right away, you'll lose someone's interest. But the truth is, what people fall for isn't how much you tell them, it's how you make them feel. Mystery engages the imagination. It invites someone to think about you when you're not there. If they already know everything, they have nothing to explore, and once that sense of exploration fades, so does the intensity of emotional investment. When you give someone space to wonder, they begin to assign their own meaning and value to who you are. That's when you start to live in their mind. Mystery also communicates emotional discipline. It says, I know who I am, and I don't need to overshare or overcompensate to earn your attention. It tells the other person that your time, your story, and your emotions are not given freely to just anyone. That kind of self-control and restraint is rare, and what's rare is attractive. When someone senses that you're not trying to be instantly known or constantly validated, it makes them lean in. It invites effort. It triggers curiosity, and that curiosity often becomes the fuel for obsession. Being strategically mysterious doesn't mean playing hard to get. It means offering glimpses of your depth rather than putting it all on display. It means leaving a story half-told, sharing a powerful insight without explaining its origin, or making a statement that invites follow-up questions rather than giving full context. It's not about manipulation, it's about trusting that the right people will be drawn to the layers you reveal over time, not just the surface-level details. There's also a psychological edge to mystery. People value what they work for. When something isn't immediately accessible, the brain assigns it greater worth. If you hand over everything too quickly, there's nothing left for someone to earn. And when people don't feel like they've earned your attention or your emotional vulnerability, they often take it for granted. But when your story unfolds gradually, when you're open yet selective, people begin to feel like they're getting access to something special. That sense of exclusivity deepens emotional investment. Strategic mystery can even shape the tone of conversations. When you speak with intention, with just enough detail to be real, but not so much that it closes the loop, you create a kind of emotional open-endedness. That open-endedness makes people come back. They replay conversations in their head. They think about what you meant, what you didn't say, and what it might be like to understand you more fully. This emotional echo is where mental obsession is born, not through overexposure, but through the intentional space you create by leaving something to be discovered. Emotional imprints are the moments you create that linger in someone's mind long after you're gone. They are not about grand gestures or perfectly rehearsed lines, but about how you made someone feel in a specific moment. Feelings, not facts, are what people return to when they're thinking about you late at night or comparing you to others. Emotional imprints form through shared experiences that tap into the senses, touch the heart, or reveal a part of your personality in a way that resonates deeply. These moments can be small, a subtle smile, a unique observation, a comment that shows unexpected emotional intelligence, but they create impact because they're real, personal, and rare. Many people focus on saying the right thing or looking the right way, assuming that attraction is built on surface-level qualities. While those may spark interest, they don't create obsession. Obsession begins when someone can't stop replaying an experience with you. It's that one moment during a conversation where your vulnerability cracked open something in them, or that moment you laughed unexpectedly at something silly and they saw a lightness they didn't know they needed. These are the things that make a person remember you, not because you tried to impress them, but because your energy did something that shifted their emotional state. To create emotional imprints, you have to be fully present. You can't fake attentiveness or care. When you're truly engaged in the moment, you're more likely to notice subtle emotional cues, ask better questions, and respond in ways that feel deeply personal. That kind of attention makes people feel seen. And when someone feels seen by you in a way they haven't experienced with others, it changes how they view you. You stop being just another person they've met and start becoming the person they compare others to. Creating emotional imprints also involves knowing when to share something meaningful about yourself. Vulnerability, when expressed with confidence, can be one of the most powerful tools for connection. Not everything needs to be revealed, but offering a piece of your truth, a fear you've overcome, a memory that shaped you, a value you hold dearly, invites the other person into your world. It's not about oversharing, but about choosing the right moment to offer something authentic. These are the things people remember, the stories that reveal your depth, the moments when you let them in just enough to feel special. There's also a creative side to emotional imprinting. Doing something different or unexpected during your interactions can create a memorable contrast. Most people follow similar scripts in dating: safe conversations, predictable compliments, shallow jokes. When you break that pattern by saying something thought-provoking, making a bold but kind observation, or shifting the conversation in an unexpected direction, you stand out. You become associated with surprise, stimulation, and emotional intensity, and those are the ingredients that fuel desire and fixation. Sometimes emotional imprints come not from what you say, but from what you don't say. Silence, when used intentionally, can be powerful. A pause before answering a question, a knowing glance, or a moment where you just listen with full attention. These create space for emotion to breathe. People fill that space with meaning. They wonder what you're thinking, why you paused, what you felt. That subtle mystery combined with emotional depth is a potent mix. The more emotionally intelligent you are, the more naturally you'll start creating these imprints. It's not about being dramatic or intense all the time. It's about tuning into the present moment, recognizing when a deeper connection is possible and leaning into it, not forcefully but gracefully. When you consistently leave someone feeling something they haven't felt in a long time, or perhaps ever, that's when you start to live in their thoughts. Scarcity creates value in ways that logic alone can't explain. Human psychology is wired to want what feels limited, exclusive, or rare. The more available something is, the more it risks being taken for granted. When someone knows they can have your attention at any time, it begins to lose its impact. But when your presence is intentional and not guaranteed, it holds weight, it feels special, it invites appreciation. Scarcity isn't about playing hard to get, it's about recognizing your own worth and not giving constant access to it just because someone wants it. In the early stages of attraction, it's natural to want to spend as much time as possible with someone you're drawn to. But what often goes unnoticed is that space fuels desire. Emotional breathing room allows curiosity to build. When someone doesn't know exactly when they'll hear from you again, or when they'll get to see you next, their mind stays engaged. They start thinking about you not just when you're around, but especially when you're not. That kind of space creates emotional tension, and that tension is one of the strongest drivers of interest and fixation. Scarcity also forces the other person to invest. When your energy isn't always available, they begin to realize it's something that must be earned. People tend to place higher value on what they've had to work for or wait for. It's the difference between a message you respond to instantly and one you respond to after taking your time. Each choice communicates something. Constant availability says, I'm always here, no matter what. Selective availability says, I'm here when it matters. One communicates desperation, the other communicates confidence. The fear that someone will lose interest if you're not always around is usually unfounded. In reality, the opposite is often true. When you're too present, too quickly, people subconsciously categorize you as someone who's already fully invested. And if they haven't reached that level of investment themselves, they start to pull back. But when you give someone the chance to miss you, they begin to notice the void your absence creates. They reflect on what they liked about your presence. That reflection is where emotional connection deepens. It's not the constant presence that creates emotional weight. It's the contrast between your presence and your absence. Scarcity isn't about withdrawal or punishment. It's about boundaries. It's about not rearranging your life to fit around someone else's schedule. It's about not texting back immediately just because your phone buzzed. It's about not saying yes to every plan or letting your own priorities dissolve because someone new entered the picture. This self-respect sends a signal. It tells the other person, without needing to say it outright, that your time is valuable, your energy is selective, and your life is already full with or without them. That energy is magnetic because it doesn't seek permission, it invites pursuit. Another layer to scarcity is emotional availability. You can be kind, warm, and engaging without being emotionally exposed to the point of losing your center. When someone feels like they're always trying to get a little deeper into your world, always hoping for a bit more insight, more presence, more affection, they stay engaged. They want more because they can't fully predict when or how they'll get it. You become a source of excitement and tension rather than something easily defined. The people we obsess over are rarely the ones who give us everything too soon. They're the ones who make us feel like we're earning a connection that is layered, real, and just out of full reach. The beauty of scarcity is that it can't be faked for long. It must come from a place of genuine self-worth and emotional independence. When you don't need someone's constant attention or approval, you stop offering your presence as a form of currency. You start offering it as a privilege, and that's when it becomes valuable in ways that stay on someone's mind long after the moment is over. Mirror What He Wants to Feel is about understanding that people are drawn not just to who you are, but to how they feel about themselves when they're around you. Attraction is deeply tied to identity. When someone feels more alive, more confident, more capable, or more emotionally seen in your presence, they begin to associate those elevated feelings with you. That association builds attachment. It's not about changing yourself to fit someone's ideal, but about becoming emotionally intelligent enough to recognize what someone truly values on a core level and reflecting that back in a sincere, grounded way. People often believe that connection comes from shared interests or constant agreement. While those things can create rapport, they don't necessarily create emotional resonance. What truly pulls someone in is when they experience themselves at their best in your presence. When they feel understood without having to explain every detail, when they feel encouraged rather than judged, when they laugh more freely, speak more openly, or feel more grounded. Those moments are subtle, but they're powerful. They trigger a deep sense of comfort and trust, often before the person even realizes it consciously. To mirror what he wants to feel, you have to be observant. Pay attention to what lights him up, what he's passionate about, what he talks about when he forgets to be guarded. Is it ambition, security, spontaneity, recognition, freedom, Whatever core emotion he's chasing in his life, the more he senses that being around you brings him closer to it, the more attached he becomes. This doesn't mean you pretend to be something you're not. It means you tune into the feeling he craves and find where it genuinely overlaps with what you naturally bring. That alignment is what makes the connection feel effortless and powerful. It also means responding to the energy he brings without losing your own. If he's someone who values peace and calm, your ability to remain centered in moments of stress creates safety. If he thrives on challenge and excitement, your ability to surprise or inspire him adds fuel to the spark. The goal isn't to become a mirror in the sense of imitation. It's to become a reflection of what's already inside him, helping him see it more clearly. This kind of dynamic draws people in because it creates a feeling of being deeply known, and being known is one of the most intimate experiences a person can have. This technique also involves emotional leadership. When you model the emotional tone you want to experience, others tend to follow. If you bring calm into chaos, warmth into defensiveness, or humor into tension, you're not just reacting, you're leading. And when someone feels better about themselves in your emotional presence, they start to seek it out. They feel more capable, more understood, more alive. They don't just like you. They like themselves more when they're with you, and that's what keeps them coming back. One of the most overlooked parts of this is that people remember how they felt more than what was said. Even if you had a short interaction, if he left that moment feeling lighter, stronger, or more inspired, that emotion will linger. He'll associate it with you, even if he can't explain why. That emotional memory becomes a trigger, and over time, it becomes harder to replace. When someone consistently experiences the feeling they're chasing in your presence, your connection with them deepens, and your role in their life becomes emotionally significant. Being able to mirror what someone wants to feel is a form of emotional fluency. It requires you to be present, tuned in, and intentional, not in a performative way, but in a conscious one. It's about being emotionally agile, adjusting your energy to amplify what matters to the other person without ever sacrificing your own authenticity or boundaries. And with impact, not cling, is about understanding the lasting power of a final impression. No matter how good the interaction was, how engaging the conversation felt, or how connected the energy seemed, it's often the final moment that determines how someone remembers you. This principle holds true whether you're ending a date, walking away from a conversation, or pausing a text exchange. The emotional tone you leave someone with will echo far longer than the details of what was said. Ending with impact means exiting in a way that is confident, graceful, and leaves them wanting more. Not in a way that seeks validation or reassurance. Clinging happens when you overstay, overshare, or reach for closure in a way that feels uncertain or needy. It's the impulse to send one more message, ask one more question, or stretch the moment beyond its natural end because you're afraid to let it go. That energy creates friction. Instead of feeling drawn to you, the other person starts to feel emotionally crowded. Impact, on the other hand, is about knowing when enough has been said or done and walking away at the peak. It's the art of leaving someone smiling, intrigued, or reflecting, rather than tired, pressured, or overwhelmed. Creating impact at the end means becoming intentional about emotional pacing. If a conversation feels great, you don't have to extend it until it loses energy. Instead, leave while it's still alive. If you're on a date and things are flowing, ending on a high note allows the emotional high to crystallize into memory. When someone is left wanting more, they mentally revisit the experience, imagining what the next interaction might bring. That anticipation is more powerful than any perfectly crafted follow-up message. It keeps you in their mind because the experience with you wasn't just good. It was incomplete in the most compelling way. There's also a layer of self-respect respect woven into this idea. Walking away with poise and certainty, especially when you could have lingered, sends a message that you are not emotionally dependent on the moment continuing. It shows that you're secure in the value you've already brought. That energy is rare and it's captivating. Most people are afraid of creating space. They fear it might lead to distance, but space, when used well, creates gravity. It draws the other person in, inviting them to close the gap because they want to, not because they're being chased. Ending with impact also gives the other person room to process their own feelings. When you walk away cleanly, without emotional hooks, it allows them to sit with the experience you created. That space helps emotional clarity rise to the surface. They may realize they miss your presence, or that something about your words struck a chord they didn't recognize at the time. But if you cling, you prevent that space from forming. You replace emotional depth with noise, and instead of giving them the chance to reach for you, you've already filled the silence. Timing plays a huge role here. Knowing when to stop talking, when to leave the room, or when to end a call isn't just a social skill, it's a strategic tool. It requires you to be in tune not just with the conversation, but with the emotional arc of the moment. If the energy is peaking, that's your cue to leave them smiling. If there's a powerful emotional connection, that's your moment to say something memorable and exit with confidence. Impact is about control, not manipulation, but self-mastery. When you end with impact, you create an emotional residue that lingers. It's the aftertaste of a great experience. It doesn't demand anything, yet it invites everything. It creates a contrast in a world full of people who don't know when to stop, who need constant attention, and who fear silence. You become the one who knows your value, who doesn't need to cling to prove it, and who can walk away while still holding their attention. That quiet power is unforgettable, and it's often what keeps someone thinking about you long after the moment has passed. The art of lingering isn't about playing games or creating confusion. It's about becoming unforgettable by mastering presence, emotional awareness, and timing. To become his mental obsession, you don't have to chase, overshare, or be constantly available. You only need to understand the emotional blueprint that drives connection and desire. When you know how to show up fully, leave a mark emotionally, and then step back with confidence, you create a powerful rhythm that draws someone in deeper each time. Obsession doesn't come from noise, it comes from resonance. It's what stays behind when you've already walked away. Each element of this journey is a layer that builds lasting impact. Your presence becomes the anchor. It tells him that you're grounded, secure, and not here to perform. It creates a sense of ease and strength that's felt, not forced. You're not competing for attention. You're commanding it without even trying. That kind of presence doesn't scream for validation. It holds space, listens deeply, and responds with calm certainty. It makes someone lean in, not out of curiosity alone, but out of the comfort and confidence you radiate simply by being yourself. Then mystery steps in, not as a wall, but as a door left slightly open. When you allow him to wonder, to imagine, to uncover you in layers, he begins to see you as a world he wants to explore, not a checklist he's already completed. You don't give everything up front because you trust your depth. You're not in a hurry to be fully understood because you know the right person will be drawn to what they sense, even before they see it all. Strategic mystery invites emotional investment because it whispers, "There's more," without saying too much. As that connection builds, emotional imprints begin to form. You start to craft moments that don't just entertain or impress, they move. Whether it's laughter in an unexpected moment, a pause that feels meaningful, or a truth you reveal that lingers, you become someone who stays with him emotionally. These imprints make him revisit your words, replay your expressions, and wonder what it all meant. That is where true obsession starts, not in physical presence, but in emotional recall. You deepen that impact by understanding the value of scarcity. You know your time is precious, your energy sacred. You don't overextend yourself for temporary closeness. Instead, you allow space, and in that space, longing grows. Your absence has weight because your presence has meaning. Scarcity doesn't mean being cold. It means being intentional. When you're not always available, you become someone whose presence feels like a gift, not an expectation. And when you can mirror the feelings he wants most, whether that's peace, excitement, validation, or depth, you begin to reflect his highest self. You're not changing yourself to meet his needs, but you're in tune enough to amplify what he values. In you, he sees more of who he wants to be. That emotional reflection becomes addictive, not because you're trying to please him, but because your energy naturally draws out his best. That's what creates emotional attachment at a deep level. It's the feeling that you understand him in a way that few others can. Finally, you leave with impact, not need. You don't overstay, over-explain, or hold on too tightly. You know when to walk away, not as a test, but as a choice. You let the moment breathe, knowing that the space you leave behind will be filled with memory, desire, and curiosity. You trust that your silence, your exit, your restraint will speak louder than any extra words. And you're right, because when you leave while the energy is high, you make him reach for you. You don't just visit his mind, you take up residence there. This is the art of lingering. It's subtle, emotional, and powerful. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of yourself with intention and precision. When you master this, you don't chase attention. You don't fight for space. You become the one he can't forget, the one he replays, the one who remains long after the moment ends. And that is how obsession begins, with presence, not pursuit, with impact, not effort, with depth, not demand.